Okay. Hi, I'm Michael, AF6FB, and I'm going to be talking about Meshtastic and Meshcore today. So even though my presentation has kind of an adversarial name, I want everybody to know both Meshcore and Meshtastic are both very valid platforms, and they each have their own sweet spots for usage. So I'm not going to be saying one is better than the other. I'm saying that for your particular application, one might offer you advantages over the other. And I want you guys to understand what those differences are so that you can make the best decisions. All right, so everything is based on LoRa, or long range. And this is a protocol that was created for doing telemetry type work. So it's designed for small packets of data. It could be something attached to a shipping container for tracking. It could be telemetry from a weather station, any number of different things. It survives in the 915 megahertz ISM, industrial, scientific, and medical band, which also overlaps with the ham radio 900 megahertz band, because we're actually secondary on that. Let's see, hardware is available from a wide variety of different vendors. Most of the hardware, most of the devices like the ones I have on the counter here will work with either system, so you don't have to worry if you made the wrong decision, because your hardware will more than likely work with the other platform as well. Again, we're talking about Meshcore and Meshtastic. There are a few other similar systems that I'll talk about just briefly that run on the same hardware that you might want to dig into more on your own. And I think I've talked about all this already. I got ahead of myself. Okay, so devices. I've got a list of manufacturers here. This photo shows this device, which is the WiseMesh Tag. It's a little standalone device. It's got a battery. It's weatherproof. It has GPS in it. It's got a beeper to tell you when new messages have arrived, things like that. And then it just connects by Bluetooth to your phone so that you can interact with it just like a regular messaging app. Another company, I think it's Seed Studio, makes a device like this as well. Very similar capabilities.
What's the relative cost of that?
I think they're $45. Most of this stuff is very affordable. So. Here's some photographs of other devices that are available. I'm not going to go into detail on them, but they range everywhere from something that's small and easy to carry around to something that you can mount on your roof or on a hilltop that is solar powered. The TDEC Plus is a common choice for people because it's got the keyboard. You can do all of your messaging directly from the device. You don't need your phone connected. And honestly, I'm going to tell you, I jumped on the idea of a standalone device for this, but the user interface on the phone is just better. It's more natural because people do text messaging and all the other social platforms. The mapping is better, all that kind of stuff. There is a place for these, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But for an everyday carry device, one of the smaller ones is just a lot easier to have with you. This is an example of the board that's inside this guy. This is a rack wireless board, and what I like about this board is you can see it's got two connectors on it here, one for battery and one for solar. So you don't need to do a lot to make a device here. You can just plug a 5-volt solar panel into it and a lithium battery, and this thing has the charge controller built in. It could just sit up there and run forever and ever. And then where these red boxes are, these are showing add-on boards, little daughter cards that you can snap onto here. And when I say little, these screw holes, they're like M1.5. I had to find a triple-aught Phillips screwdriver to put them in. They're really small. But it's got, they've got a ton of different modules, everything from environmental sensors to light sensors, proximity sensors, just a ton of different stuff. And then this bigger connector that's towards the back side of the card, you can actually plug in power modules. So you can put a module on there that will accept between 9 and 36 volts to power the device, power over Ethernet. I don't know, they've got maybe half a dozen different types of power modules that you can use on it. And then on the back side, which is the other photo there, they've got a couple more expansion ports. And this particular board has the GPS module mounted on the back, and there's still one more slot. So you can have a lot of fun with these. This is the Heltec T114. That's the board that's inside these devices. I've got two of them here. One has a GPS and one does not. This board also has the battery and solar connectors, and it's just all kind of built together real nice. And the displays are very good quality. They're easy to read. This is an example of a homebrew repeater. It's got that wise mesh board inside that I was talking about, and there's a variety of different cases you can build for doing this kind of thing. And now there are complete, ready-to-go repeaters in a weatherproof enclosure bundled with the solar panel, the whole 9 yards, that you can get into for like $100 to $120 and put that outside. Sneak it up to a hilltop, whatever you want to do. Okay, so I'm going to mention off-grid a lot, and I talk about off-grid messaging, off-grid tracking. What I'm saying when I mean that is no internet is required, no cellular is required, and it's ad hoc in nature, meaning you don't have to put a lot of infrastructure in place in order to get this working. All right, so let's start by talking about Meshtastic. In the Meshtastic world, every device will repeat the signals it hears. When a message or packet is sent, it has a maximum hop count associated with it, which gets decremented each time a device retransmits it, so that it kind of has a limited range, but you have control over that. The challenge with this is, if you look at that device in the middle there, he's repeating every signal he hears, but so are the devices around him. And this can lead to channel congestion because everybody's repeating everything they hear. And that's one of the weak spots of Meshtastic if you're in a congested area. But if you're out on a 4x4 trip with half a dozen of your friends and you each have one of these mounted to your vehicle, then it's perfect because you guys can be spread out. Everybody's still seeing the messages. You could be tracking where the other vehicles are. You could use this for a hike or any number of things. And even if you're in one of those more congested areas, you can set up a private channel. So if you've got family members, they could each carry one of these devices around, and you can keep track of where everybody is at Legoland or whatever other event you're doing. I already see, I'm jumping ahead again. I know there's a neighborhood group up in the San Fernando Valley that they've implemented Meshtastic in their neighborhood so that they can message each other and stay connected during power failures, internet outages, things like that. All kinds of special events. There's a concert promoter that's up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and for a lot of the concerts they do, they publish settings for Mesh, so that attendees can bring it, and then they'll send out announcements over that to the people attending the event. It's kind of an interesting application.
Do you have any examples of anybody using it for search and rescue?
I do not personally, but I know there are other groups that do. Yes, sir.
I have a buddy that owns a mine and search and rescue trains in his mine, and they use the Meshtastic to set up a network within the mine.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
they can communicate because regular radio won't work well.
Okay. I'm just going to repeat that because we're recording. So what he said was he has a friend that's got a mine, and the local search and rescue team does drills in the mine to practice for events. And they've set up a network using Meshtastic within the mine so they can all be connected while they're underground doing their work. Yeah, in the back.
Do you need an amateur radio license to use Meshtastic?
You do not. And that's why it's great for families or neighborhood groups. You know, you throw somebody one of these and say, you know, put it in your pocket for the duration of the event, and you're set up. Yes?
I live in rural Arizona. When I say rural Arizona, it's a lot of canyons, a lot of valleys and ups and downs. I have a friend who not only mountain bikes to motorcycles in the woods, and he's got it set up, he's got some set up for himself, so that his wife can track him while he's riding.
Awesome. So I'm just going to repeat that again a little bit. So this gentleman was talking about a friend that has a lot of property, and he's set up Meshtastic nodes out there so that his wife can track his location. Kind of a good application. And then I know Red Cross is here today to learn more about this, and they're thinking about doing some work with the mesh products as well. I see a hand in the back.
Just a question, you were talking about like the concert situation. Do you know about how many you need to get to where the congestion becomes an issue? Has there been anybody figured that out?
For large events, and I'll talk about this in a minute, with Meshtastic, there's different operating modes you can set. And so at an event like that, they'll typically suggest people set themselves up as a client mute, which means they'll receive messages but not retransmit them. And then they'll put up a couple of repeater-style nodes out there that will be able to move those messages around for everybody. So it's pretty easy to cover a concert venue because it's all line of sight, you know. So, but yeah, it's a valid concern. So we talked about going on an off-road trip or a hike or any number of things. This is just an example of people out in different areas of a route, a trail, whatever, and being able to stay in touch with each other through the retransmissions. Meshtastic, a couple of years ago, they started adding what they call their Meshtastic UI or MUI. This is where they put a more elaborate user interface on the display devices, and they have two versions of it. One that's designed for the larger LCD or OLED displays, full color interface, and then they've also put a lot of work into the e-ink displays to make them work better, and they've fine-tuned the fonts used on the e-ink displays so they look better. This was before they started tuning the fonts to match the resolution of the devices, so the fonts are still a little bit choppy, but always evolving. The mobile app, I didn't get the audio working on this, but I'm going to run through it and I'll kind of narrate. There we go. So this is showing the different channels that are available for messaging. And you can set up private channels that are encrypted and everything so that you and your family can have private conversations. This is an example of the message window. You can see it looks very similar to text messaging or Discord or any number of other things. Very easy to use. Yep, that's my clumsy typing there. Yeah. remember how much more. Okay, this is a list of the local devices, and what you'll see is it tells you how many hops away they are, and a little bit of telemetry, like their battery status and some things like that. This is hard to narrate, actually, so let's just kind of slide forward here. You can tap one of these and get a trace route for how they're connected to you, the path they're going through. There's a map on the mobile app, tells you where all the devices are. You can see I've got a couple of devices at home there. Yeah. Now you can set positional ambiguity on it to where the GPS location will be like within 500 feet of the real one, or 1,000 feet, or a couple of kilometers, just depending on how much privacy you want to have about your location. These QR codes are used for sharing private channels. So you can set one up, and then somebody else will scan that QR code with their phone, and it brings that channel onto their device. You can connect to devices using different means. If it's got Wi-Fi, you can connect over the network, or you can connect over serial or Bluetooth. So a lot of options available there.
When you said you could set up encrypted channels, are you referring to the application or the encryption that's endemic to LoRa itself?
So I think it's using the encryption that's endemic to LoRa, but a private channel would have a unique encryption key that's used. We're going to jump into some of the radio configuration stuff here. Very detailed view. There's not a ton on any one configuration screen, so it's not too overwhelming. This is the radio setup page. You have a long name and a short name, and they're just completely up to you. This is where you set up what type of device your radio is, whether it's a client or client mute or a repeater or a few others. They've reduced the number of options since I made this video. This is setting up your beaconing intervals. Okay, I think we've seen enough of that. So what should be running through some of your heads is a lot of what I've talked about, this repeating of traffic, beaconing intervals, messaging. This is all very similar to APRS, okay? And I don't think that's a mistake. I think they modeled a lot of it after APRS for the amateur radio world. But it's a lot easier to get your non-ham buddies to carry one of these around than it is to get them to get a license and carry around a radio that has APRS capabilities. So just think about that. Okay, so there's a few different apps that are available. These are all web apps. The Flash app is for flashing the firmware onto the device. This is web-based, so you just connect by USB. It'll pick it up and flash the firmware for you. The web app is the web equivalent of the Android app I was just showing the video on. Mesh Map is a web-based map that connects into the network and shows you where all the different devices are. And then Site Planner is a really interesting one. It helps you build like propagation maps that show how radio might cover from a certain location, or if you give it two GPS coordinates, it'll tell you if there's a line of sight, or if you might get some knife edge over the top of a hill, or if there's probably no chance you'll make the connection at all. So it's kind of a cool little thing. Yeah, in the back.
What is the actual RF power output of most of the devices?
Most of the devices max out at 1 watt. There are some 2 watt devices out, but I think technically there's supposed to be some kind of licensing for the 2 watt radios, but nobody seems to care. Pardon me?
The 900 megahertz this uses, it's in the ISM band, which is also part of the ham band?
Correct.
So if you had a ham license, you could use your call sign, use pretty much any power you wanted to, right?
Right, and Meshtastic does have a setting for amateur radio use, but be aware that it removes the encryption, and you'd only be able to talk to other devices that have that flag set as well. So,
When I've set mine with my hand call sign, the map goes clear.
yeah,
I'm all alone. There's no,
right.
So I reflash it, changed it.
Yeah. So, I mean, for a ham club doing an event, you know, doing supporting a bicycle ride or something like that, you know, it would be fine and almost preferred, because then you wouldn't have all the riffraff bouncing off of your nodes, right? So it's something to think about. There are definitely applications for it. So this is a desktop app called MeshSense, and it gives you a lot of the same type of information as the web app or the mobile app, but it's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. It gives you the map, lets you do messaging. It's kind of the nerd app, because you're seeing a lot more of the lower level messages and being able to interact with it at a lower level. One of the cool things about Meshtastic is the way they tie repeaters together is using a technology called MQTT, message queuing and telemetry transport. Home Assistant is based on MQTT. That's how the sensors talk back to the... Does anybody not know what Home Assistant is? Fair. So Home Assistant is an open source home automation platform. It lets you build something like Google Home or Alexa off of a Raspberry Pi, and it'll run completely standalone in your home. Doesn't need to have an internet connection. And it supports all the same devices. So it's a very cool home automation setup. But you can set up rules in here now to where if a device gets close to home, it could turn on lights. It could make an announcement saying somebody's arriving home. If you have sensors in your home, it could send messages to your device saying, hey, you know, your freeze sensor is going off, or you've got a water leak in the basement. Some really useful kinds of things. Okay, on the configuration, we're going to go through some of this here. This is the kind of the rules for large gathering. You want to turn off MQTT because you don't want every device repeating everything that's going over MQTT, because that's just way more noise. You're going to use a little lower radio power and still transmit at a higher speed so that your signal doesn't go as far. And this is the client mute I was talking about, where your radio will receive messages but not retransmit them. Yes?
What's considered a large gathering?
Well, I got these settings from Hamvention that they used last year. So this was what they recommended. There's thousands of people that attend that every year. But you know, if you had more than 100 people in a dense area, you might want to start thinking about this. I tried to get some coordination going for doing mesh here, but we couldn't pull it together in time. But next year we'll have it set up, and you'll see I'll make similar recommendations like this. So. Okay, so common mistakes, things to look out for. And these are really true for both Meshcore and Meshtastic. But you don't want to turn on the MQTT downlink for the default channel, which is called long fast, because it'll pull messages in from everywhere and transmit them in your local region, which causes a lot of RF to happen and just plugs the channel up. Limit the number of hops for your messages. Depending on how dense your area, you may want to drop it down to 3 or 4, but 6 is a pretty good starting point. On that default channel, keep it clean. Churches use this, kids are using it in school. You know, it's the family channel. So just keep that in mind. And if you're setting up a home node, you can put a GPS on it so that it's always got an accurate time, but it's suggested that you use fixed location, and the reason is GPS drifts. And if the GPS is drifting on a device like that, it's transmitting location more often than it needs to, and it's just causing extra traffic coming in. So if you set fixed, then it's not going to send it as often. This is a page you want to take a picture of. I've got a bunch of links up here. I'll just leave that up for a sec.
Is the default 915 when you said the default frequency?
915 is the center of the band, and the radio manufacturers just say this is a 915 megahertz device as opposed to 868, which is used in other areas, or 433 that's used in other areas. So that's just the three distinctions for the bands that are covered.
Yeah, because here it's mostly 915, but then other groups have other frequencies that they use.
Correct.
If
Correct.
you get it out of the box, the default's probably 915.
No. No. It's like saying 440 when you're talking about the 70 centimeter band. It's just a way to identify that it's not 868 or 433.
Okay, so just
Okay.
like the 915 model.
Correct. And a lot of the ones that do 868 will also do 915, but not all of them. So you just got to, look at the settings when you're placing your order and make sure that what you order covers 915. Everybody done with this page?
Do you have slides of this?
They're right here. I can make a download available. So I'll see if there's something I can do through the committee here for the Hamfest. If not, my contact info will be at the end, and I'll put it on my website. All right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and Ray here is recording this, so it'll be available on a couple of YouTube channels as well.
Thanks, Ray. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray.
All right, so let's talk about Meshcore. Now, this section is going to be a little bit shorter because a lot of things are similar between the two. So I'm going to be talking mostly about what's different with Meshcore. All right? So with Meshcore, you have 4 different types of devices, and 2 of them are really the same. So there's 3 types of devices, if you can do the fingers right there. There's companion devices, there's repeater devices, and then there's what's called message rooms. So repeaters will pick up a signal and retransmit it. Client devices will transmit and receive, but they won't repeat anything. So you can see in the diagram here that as the message goes from one client to the other, it's only passing through repeaters. What is nice about this is it cuts down the messaging traffic tremendously. And it motivates people to put repeaters up at good high locations to build infrastructure for Meshcore to work well. So a lot of the same use cases here. In fact, I just added one to this list, long distance messaging. From my home in Paris, there's repeaters that run all the way down the Angeles National Forest line. There's repeaters out on the coast in the San Fernando Valley, in the Inland Empire. I can sit at my desk at home and I can send a message to somebody in San Diego or somebody in Santa Barbara, somebody in San Luis Obispo, just because there's a lot of repeaters that have already been installed at high hilltops, and I can make a message flow with like 3 hops to locations like that. So it's pretty cool. Again, a reduced number of devices. So the companion device is the one you would typically carry around with you. You can set that one up to be either a Bluetooth companion or a USB companion. So normally, like these are all set up as Bluetooth companions. But if you wanted to have a device that's bonded to a computer, whether it be a desktop computer or like a Raspberry Pi, you would set it up to be a USB companion. And then there's a repeater and a room server. And a room server is kind of like a BBS. It's a place where you can store messages. So one of the examples I came up with is, let's say you live in a condo association. You could set up a room server for the association where you could post announcements that everybody would be able to access. And it also has the benefit of operating as a repeater. So. And I have said almost all of this. There's a client repeat functionality that's being worked on in Meshcore that would give it some of the same capabilities as the Meshtastic in that regard, but those messages won't go through the repeater. So if you're going out to do like a hike or a caravan, you can turn on client repeat and be able to stay in touch with everybody in your group, but you're not going to be plugging up the repeaters with traffic. So. The mobile app, this is 3 screenshots side by side. You can see that it's very similar to Meshtastic. Offers all the same capabilities, really. Similar set of web apps. There's one for flashing devices. There's a client where you can do configuration and interact with the device, do messaging, all that kind of stuff. A couple of different map sites. There's a bunch of like desktop, server, Linux kind of apps that are available. And I've only looked at a couple of these, but some really interesting capabilities. Okay, so let's talk about those philosophical differences between the two and why you might choose one over the other. Grids are great for this kind of stuff. So the Meshtastic is really designed more around the ad hoc decentralized approach towards connectivity, where Meshcore is more the structured and planned type approach. The routing strategies are different. Meshtastic is a managed flood, so there is a certain amount of control. Like if a repeater hears from another repeater, it's not going to retransmit because the figures are in the same region, things like that. The Meshcore is a more controlled. So if I send a message to somebody and they reply back to me, the route my message went through arrives with the message. So when they reply, only the repeaters that are on that route will repeat my signal. So it cuts down on some of the side traffic that's out there. You can also do manual routing. Like if you know you could hit this repeater, and this repeater to get to this guy, you can set up a fixed route for that so that it's just only using the resources that it needs. Hop limits are different. Meshtastic, because of how they flood messages out there, they restrict it a lot more than Meshcore does. And I don't know, I seldom see messages that arrive to me that have more than about 8 hops on them. So the infrastructure is doing its thing. You know, it's working well.
Question before you go on.
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar with Meshcore. Under Meshcore, for a repeater, can I choose that or configure that repeater to act as a gateway into the internet? And can I use infrastructure versus just RF repeat from repeater to repeater?
Yeah, so there is an MQTT app. I'm repeating for the video. He's asking if there is a way that a repeater could be tied in, like over the internet, to another repeater to build a stronger infrastructure. And there is work being done in that area. There's a Python script that'll run on a Raspberry Pi, and you connect it by USB to the LoRa device so that it can transmit out over MQTT to another device. I would call it in the experimental stage right now, but I've seen demos of it working. So they're just not sure how it's going to impact the infrastructure. If it's going to be like tunnels to hook together wide areas, remote areas, or if it's something that they would tie all the repeaters to. They're just really carefully planning how it's going to affect things.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the back?
My question is, if you're mobile or you're moving in Meshcore, and I go to a different location, and it uses a fixed or predetermined way to route to me, how does it know to find me at the new location?
He's asking about with the fixed routing that gets built, and if he changes to a new location, how does that affect things? So one of the things that Meshcore does really well is the delivery confirmations. So when your device sends a message, if one of the hops doesn't respond, it'll say, okay, I'm done. That route doesn't work, and it's going to do more of a flood to get it out there, and then it'll record the new route. So it's pretty smart in that regard. In the back over here.
Michael, you mentioned the mobile apps. Is there an app that's compatible with Android Auto or CarPlay where I could see the messaging on my car console in apps?
I don't believe so, but that's definitely something I want to see. And I'm really excited about Android XR and smart glasses, so I would want to see stuff like that coming up on my glasses too. So I might have to get my coding skills back out and see if I can create something in that regard.
That's a definite maybe?
Definite maybe. Anything else? All right. A few other things here. I talked about how the messaging delivery confirmations are more sophisticated for Meshcore. Meshtastic will take whatever telemetry type information. Remember I talked about those different sensors you can connect, and it transmits it every time it beacons. With Meshcore, it's more of a pull scenario. So I can look at a device and it'll say it's got telemetry available. I can tap on it and see that telemetry. It'll share it with me. So it's not sending out that bigger data packet every time. We talked a little bit about the internet bridging already. So this is like a giant thing for a lot of people. Meshtastic is open source top to bottom. Okay? Meshcore is open source for the firmware, but the mobile apps are a paid model. There's a developer that created the app, and I would call it kind of a nag type of scenario, where if you go into one of the areas that's a paid feature, it starts a 10-second timer that you got to wait through, and then it'll go on in and let you do what you want to do. And if you pay for it, those timers go away. And most of the paid stuff is around managing remote nodes. So, for example, if I've got this guy connected to my phone and I've got a repeater that I manage, I can go through here over LoRa to the repeater and be able to change its settings, restart it, that kind of stuff. I don't have to go up to the hilltop to do that. And that administration capability is part of that paid feature pack. Actually, I think that's all that's part of the paid feature pack. So it's not too limiting for the majority of people. Yeah.
On your hilltop repeater you're mentioning?
Yeah.
What's the typical distance from an operating area to the hilltop? Are we talking 5 miles, 10 miles? What's your experience for the distance on that repeater?
Well, you're talking like coverage area, right?
Well, link the path from a user,
Uh-huh.
to a little portable user, to a hilltop repeater.
If you've got line of sight, 10 miles isn't unreasonable.
Okay. Well, yeah, but line of sight's typically quicker than 10 miles, but okay.
No, but I mean, it's, you're talking a device that's maxing out at 1 watt.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Right.
So what's your experience? 10 miles is normal?
I've made it further. There's, in Southern California, we've got repeaters up on Mount Wilson, and, I can get into that from 30 miles away.
Really? With that little device?
Yeah. Now, if it's outside the car, if it's inside the car, you lose like a half to 3/4 of your signal just trying to get through the window, right? So, you just got to take out, it's all normal FM propagation at 900 megahertz.
Yeah.
So, if you could get to it with a handy talkie on low power, chances are good you'll get there from this. And, many of the devices have external antennas. So I will periodically run a repeater in my car, and I have a little mag mount that's got a 900 megahertz spike on it. I just plunk that on the top so that I can hear better and I can talk better. But it's still just a device like this.
Okay.
So
when you do that device you're putting in the car, it's just a standalone repeater. You're still using.
Yeah, it might look super similar to this, just plugged into the power port in the back of my car. So,
Okay.
might look exactly like this.
Yeah. Yeah. You can glue a magnet on the bottom.
The radio itself will go, if you have line of sight, will go horizon to horizon on a single AA battery. And it'll do that all day and all night forever. Because that's why it's called LoRa, long range. And it has incredible, not propagation, has incredible signal recovery capabilities for battery powered devices. So your limitation is more terrain and topography and not attenuation because of distance.
Attenuated depending on where you have it. You got it in your pocket, you got a bunch of other stuff in your pocket.
That's terrain and topography. My butt is.
It's not for me.
So you put an antenna on the top of your hat, right? Or you get one of these smaller ones and take the circuit board out and you mount it to the inside of your hat and have the SMA mounted to the outside. I'm sure the RF exposure issue would be minimal. Okay, so I think I've talked about a lot of this already. So let's move on. Unique to Meshcore, more of that citywide utility and quieting the network. When to use which? So Meshtastic, highly mobile activities. It's a perfect match for that. Meshcore is better for permanent installations, more defined groups, and it gets you that higher reliability. So, anybody want to do a demo?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. It's 9:47 right now, so we're not going to get very far. But the instructor for the next session isn't here, so.
You've done a great job of telling us where we are with both those systems. Could you say a little bit of the history of how we got here for both of those, that we just pop into existence? What's the derivation of those systems?
Well, LoRa was created for the Internet of Things.
Right.
Okay? So this all got started with sensor-type devices, medical devices, being able to communicate back and forth. And then I'm sure some ham radio guy worked at a company that was using this stuff and said, oh, geez, I could do APRS on this. And started playing around with it, and it grew from there. So.
Those were two different development paths for two different projects.
Yeah. So, so Meshtastic started more in the U.S., and Meshcore was more of a European development project. and they've kind of crossed over, so where they're both in both areas now. So, yeah.
But LoRa, like my ambient weather system.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's probably running 433.
That's 950.
Okay. So it could be LoRa. Let me start here, and then I'll go over there.
You mentioned that Meshtastic handles random public messages in general. Does Meshcore, with the fixed infrastructure, still handle general messages from other systems?
Yeah, so the messages are a primary part of Meshcore. So like I'm on a public channel. There's a group in Southern California called West Coast Mesh, wcmesh.org. And they kind of have a standardized channel for different regions and provide a lot of support for the system there. So, and there's similar groups in other areas. Okay, now there's a question there, and then I'll go to the back.
Yeah, a question I have is, between the two systems, Meshcore and Meshtastic, is there some kind of a gentleman's agreement, so to speak, as far as channel spectrum allocations between these two? It would seem that in an urban area that if, let's say Meshtastic is more
Prominent
utilization intensive, with all the extra traffic, with laws of physics, wouldn't that create a problem for the other?
Well, yes.
Things like that?
Yes, I got to turn this over to this side again. With Meshtastic, people tend to use one of the preset channels that's available. And Meshcore, it's more of a, I'm going to operate on this frequency with this bandwidth and things like that. So in the Meshcore world, a lot of times people are looking at where the actual traffic is, and they'll position their network, if you will, at a quiet place in the band. And that's what West Coast Mesh did. They looked at those defaults on Meshtastic and found a spot that's away from those default channels.
Kind of an ad hoc coordination.
Yeah, yeah. And in the back.
Are these networks malware resistant? Do we have to worry about bad guys hacking in?
I'm sure there's the potential for issues there, but you've got to remember, like for Meshcore, most of the repeaters are not connected to the internet, so they'd have to be coming in over RF in order to attack them. And I don't have any visibility to know how vulnerable a device is over RF, but my guess is that the best shot at trying to hack into something like this would be malformed packets. And again, you got to remember, these things are running like little ESP32 processors on them. There's not a lot of power to do very much. Yep.
So with the home system, can you get a camera image through this Meshtastic or Meshcore?
So best case, you're going to get maybe 1,200 baud out of Meshcore packets. So you could, but it would take a lot of packets to build up even a very small image.
And then,
so I would say no.
So there's a guy that I just discovered on YouTube called Data Slayer.
Uh-huh.
And he's talking about a couple things that I just learned about. Reticulum, have you heard of that? And then Haven and Mene. So
Mene, yeah.
IP mesh radio.
Right. Yep.
Have you played around with any of that?
I haven't, but it's on my list. So Reticulum is LoRa based, but it's a different type of network.
Right.
It's more privacy oriented, things like that. I like to have friends, so privacy is, it's not really a ham radio thing. But it is interesting. Okay, another question.